Welcome to another emotional, thought-provoking story brought to you by A1 Storyteller, a place where stories touch your heart, stir your emotions, and leave a lasting impact on your soul. Today, we bring you a tale that is bound to make you rethink how we treat one another, the importance of dignity and respect, and the true measure of worth. This is not just a story about a man in a uniform. It's a story about how appearances can deceive, how character defines us more than wealth, and how a single moment can change the way we view the world. In this powerful story, we'll follow a royal guard who walks into a luxury car dealership, expecting to be treated with the same respect and courtesy as any other customer. But what happens next will shake you to the core. Andy, dismissed, belittled, and humiliated for nothing more than the uniform he wears, the royal guard finds himself at a crossroads, faced with the harsh reality that the world often judges us based on superficial impressions. But what happens when he returns the next day, not alone, but with someone who holds more power than anyone could imagine? This story isn't just about royalty or luxury. It's about dignity, self-respect, and the lesson we all need to learn about how we view each other. Get ready to experience a tale that will not only move you, but will challenge your perceptions and remind you of the values that truly matter. Stay with us and let the power of this story resonate deeply in your heart. Welcome to A1 Storyteller. The Royal Guard, a figure of discipline and unwavering pride, had always lived by a code, one of respect, humility, and service. He was used to being in places of reverence and honor, representing the strength of the monarchy with every step he took. But today was different. He had come into the heart of London, not as a guard of royalty, but as a man with a simple wish. His goal wasn't to stand at attention, salute, or carry out his duty of protecting the royal family. No, today he was here to purchase a car, a dream he'd held for years. For a man of his stature, it wasn't about the luxury of the car itself. It was about a moment of personal achievement, a reward for years of service and sacrifice. As he walked into the dealership, the sleek cars on display gleamed under the bright lights. His eyes sparkled with admiration for the machines, and for a brief moment, he felt like any other man, just a person with a goal. But that sense of belonging was quickly shattered. The first thing he noticed was the cold, dismissive looks from the staff as he entered. The well-dressed salespeople, who were accustomed to dealing with high-profile clients, seemed almost startled by his presence. They didn't see a man of dedication and service. They saw a uniform. And in that moment, it was clear that a uniform like his, stiff and ceremonial, didn't belong in a place like this. The Royal Guard didn't take offense at the stares. He was used to the occasional sideways glance. But when he approached a salesperson and expressed his interest in a car, he was met with indifference. The young man behind the counter barely glanced up, dismissively muttering that they were too busy to assist him. There was no smile, no attempt to make him feel welcomed. And his uniform, red and gleaming, a symbol of centuries of tradition, seemed like a barrier, a wall to the world of luxury cars that surrounded him. It wasn't just that he wasn't given attention, it was the way they treated him like he was invisible, as if he didn't belong in a place like this. And it wasn't lost on him that it was his uniform, his identity, that had instantly disqualified him from their world. He tried to brush it off. He was used to people being quick to judge, quick to assume, but the rejection stung. It wasn't just about being treated unfairly. It was about being reduced to nothing more than the clothes on his back. He had spent his life serving with pride, protecting the monarchy, and now, for once, he had stepped into the world of luxury, only to be cast aside like a beggar. As the Royal Guard stood there, the weight of the moment settled in. He wasn't just a man in uniform now. He was a man scorned, rejected by a world he had never sought to enter. But he had hoped that today would be different. He had walked in with dignity, hoping to be treated like any other customer was. To Fanti, instead, he was being treated like an outsider. His mind began to race, wondering how things could have turned out differently, if only they hadn't judged him by his appearance. But before he could even process the sting of the salesperson's dismissal, the manager appeared. His eyes scanned the guard's uniform, his face impassive, and then, in a voice laced with disinterest, the manager spoke. "I'm afraid this isn't the right place for you," he said. The words were harsh, cutting through the air like a cold wind. "Oh, we're quite busy today, and I don't think we can help you." His tone was dismissive, as though the mere presence of the Royal Guard was an inconvenience. "Please leave." The words hit harder than any of the insults or rejections he had faced before. The manager didn't even attempt to offer an apology or an explanation. There was no empathy, no acknowledgement of his worth as a person. It was as if his very identity, the uniform, the history, the respect he had earned, meant nothing to them. He wasn't worthy of their time, their attention, or their respect. He was just a man in a uniform, an intrusion into a world where he didn't belong. But the Royal Guard didn't argue. He didn't shout or cause a scene. His pride, his honor, had always come from his restraint, from knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. So, with a quiet nod, he turned and walked out of the dealership. His face remained stoic, but inside, something cracked. The reality of what had just happened weighed heavily on him, more than he could have imagined. He had never felt so small, so invisible. He had always served with a sense of purpose, always knowing that his actions mattered. But today, that purpose had been questioned, reduced to nothing in the eyes of those who couldn't see beyond the surface. The sting of rejection was sharper than anything he had ever faced in his career. But he held his head high as he walked away, though the quiet ache in his heart was undeniable. The following day, something remarkable happened. The Royal Guard, having had time to process the hurt and the shame, returned to the dealership. His steps were measured, purposeful, but this time he wasn't alone. By his side walked a man who, though not a stranger, was far from ordinary. It was none other than Prince William, the heir to the British throne, a man who carried not just a name, but a legacy of duty and responsibility. The salespeople, who had dismissed the guard the day before, now stood frozen, their eyes wide with shock. The manager, who had so callously sent the guard away, now had a look of disbelief on his face, as if he could scarcely comprehend what was happening. They hadn't just turned away any customer. They had dismissed someone who stood beside the future King of England, but none of them could have expected what came next. As the Royal Guard and Prince William made their way through the dealership, a sense of realization spread through the room. The salespeople, now scrambling to save face, were no longer in control of the situation. The manager, realizing the gravity of what he had done, approached, but he couldn't hide the tension in his face. Prince William, calm and composed, turned to him with a steady gaze. "It seems there's been a misunderstanding," the prince said, his voice calm but filled with an unmistakable authority. "You seem to think that the people you serve here are defined by their wealth, by the way they look. But this man beside me is more than you could ever comprehend. He is a symbol of service, of dignity, of pride in a world that has long forgotten what those words mean." There was no anger in the prince's voice, just the quiet strength of a man who understood the weight of his words. The salespeople and manager were speechless, unable to respond to the reality of their mistake. They had not just humiliated a man, they had insulted a symbol of loyalty and respect. Symbol of loyalty and respect. And now, standing beside him was the very figure of royalty who had come to stand in solidarity with someone they had so carelessly dismissed. Prince William's words echoed in the showroom, and the salespeople stood in stunned silence, unable to fully grasp the weight of what was unfolding before them. The reality of their actions had just hit them hard. The young salesperson who had been the first to dismiss the royal guard now found himself trembling. How could he have been so blind, so quick to judge? The arrogance that had once flowed through him like a steady stream was now replaced with regret, and the air grew thick with the realization of just how wrong they had been. The manager, who had been so quick to send the royal guard away, stood frozen. He had believed that wealth, appearance, and status were the keys to defining a person's worth. He had believed that those who didn't fit into their narrow view of success had no place in this world. But standing before him now was the unmistakable truth that a person's worth is never defined by what they wear, how much they have, or the image they project. It is defined by their character, their service, and the quiet dignity with which they live their lives. The royal guard had come to the dealership not as a man seeking special treatment, but simply as someone who had worked hard for his own piece of success. And in that, he had been rejected, ignored, and humiliated. But today, he was not alone. Today, he was standing with someone who understood that it was never about the outward appearance. It was about who a person truly was. The royal guard had not returned to seek revenge or to make a statement. He had returned because deep down, he knew that there was something far more important than the snub he had endured. It wasn't the car he had come for, it was the principle. He had returned to show the dealership that true strength comes from within, that no amount of wealth or status could ever define a person's worth. As the prince spoke, the royal guard remained silent, letting the truth of the situation sink in. There was no need for him to say anything. His presence, his loyalty, and his unwavering dignity had already said more than words ever could. And in that moment, the lesson was clear. It was not the people in the dealership who had power. They had none. The real power lay with those who stood firm in their integrity, who were unshaken by the judgments of others, and who lived lives defined not by appearance, but by their actions. The manager, realizing the full weight of his mistake, stammered as he tried to apologize. His words were rushed, almost frantic, as if attempting to fix something that could never truly be undone. I'm so sorry," he muttered, his face flushed with embarrassment. "I didn't know who you were." "I didn't mean to disrespect you." But the damage had already been done. The royal guard, his dignity still intact, simply nodded. He didn't need an apology. What he had endured the day before wasn't something that could be erased with a few words. The apology felt empty, hollow, as though it came too late to matter. The rejection he had faced had already cut deep, but it wasn't just the humiliation he had suffered. It was the principle. It was the principle. It was the idea that, for a moment, the world had judged him not for his service or his character, but for what he appeared to be. And that was a lesson in itself, a painful reminder that people are often quick to judge others based on their own narrow definitions of worth. The apology wasn't enough, Kiyu. It couldn't undo the sting of being cast aside simply because of a uniform, a symbol of duty and service that should have been respected, not ridiculed. But the royal guard wasn't there for retribution. He wasn't looking for a moment of victory or a chance to prove himself. What he sought was recognition of something far more important, respect for the inherent dignity of every person, no matter who they are or what they look like. He wanted the world to see that value doesn't come from wealth, appearance, or social status. True value is found in a person's character, their actions, and the integrity with which they live their life. That's what he wanted the dealership to understand. That's what he wanted the world to understand. And as he stood there, alongside Prince William, the realization dawned on those around him. It wasn't about the car, the sale, or the apology. It was about something much greater. It was a lesson about humanity. It was a lesson about the importance of seeing beyond the surface, of recognizing the worth of others, not because of their wealth or status, but because of the heart they carry within. And that lesson, though difficult and painful, was one that could never be forgotten. It would stay with those who had witnessed it forever. As he stood beside Prince William, the entire room felt the weight of the truth. A person's worth isn't determined by their wealth or what they wear, but by their integrity and character. The royal guard, in his stillness, became a symbol of quiet strength, a reminder that real honor doesn't come from outward appearances, but from the way we carry ourselves, from the values we hold, and the respect we give to others. In that moment, the salespeople who had once looked at him with disdain now saw him for who he truly was. He wasn't just a man in a uniform. He was a man of dignity, of service, and of quiet pride. And the lesson, though painful, was one they would carry with them forever. It wasn't just about acknowledging someone's worth. It was about changing the way we see the world, the way we treat people, and the way we judge others based on fleeting impressions. The royal guard, though deeply hurt by the events of the previous day, didn't seek vengeance. He didn't want to punish anyone for the way he had been treated. Instead, he wanted to leave a lasting mark on their hearts, to show them that true greatness lies in the capacity to respect others, to see beyond the surface, and to recognize the value in every person, no matter their background. It wasn't about wealth or status. It was about humility, about understanding that no one is superior to another because of what they wear or what they own. The real lesson was about humanity, about how we treat one another when no one is watching. And for the royal guard, that was the greatest victory of all. He left the dealership that day, not with a car, but with something far more valuable, a recognition of his worth, not based on appearances, but on the strength of his character. It wasn't just the salespeople who learned something that day. It was everyone who witnessed the moment. The story of the royal guard, his quiet dignity, and his unwavering strength would linger in the hearts of those who were present, a powerful reminder that we are all more than what we seem. And in that, they would find the true measure of a person. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey today, brought to you by A1 Storyteller. We hope this story has touched your heart and reminded you of the importance of looking beyond the surface to truly understand a person's worth. The lesson we've learned from the Royal Guard's strength, dignity, and resilience is one that will stay with us forever. How we treat others should never be based on their appearance, status, or wealth, but on their character, their integrity, and the respect they deserve. As we close today's story, take a moment to reflect on how you see the world and the people around you. Are we quick to judge? Or do we take the time to truly understand and appreciate each person's story? Let this powerful tale serve as a reminder that it's never too late to change, to grow, and to treat others with the dignity they deserve. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to A1 Storyteller for more incredible stories that challenge, inspire, and make you think. Until next time, remember, the true measure of a person is found not in what they have, but in how they make the world a better place. Thank you for being a part of our community, and we look forward to sharing even more heartfelt stories with you soon.